just because ultimately in real time I thought it was more like something like this, right?
Yeah, that's what I had. So I thought it was failing to break any lower.
Yeah. At this point of the day, right, I was kind of more. This is what I was cautious of, right? And we've talked about this, kind of at length, over the past couple of weeks. It's you know when we're here, and let me see if I can just do this for a second. At this point, right, and we're looking at this trade, I'm still thinking something along the lines of, you know, as we're working up and then we start kind of working down here, right? And we get this kind of move up like this as well, right? For me, um, there's this feels a little floaty for me, right? It's your Mac will mark this, right? And it will probably call it one of the better trades for today, right? Um, but you're depending on two things. You're depending on this trend not being like this and this trend not being like this, right? So for me, I initially look at this like this trend is still intact. This trend right here has had a break in new extreme. I'm looking for it to possibly go lower, right? Especially considering this lack of structure all day. So I think this one will be marked. I think it's a little tough in the context of everything to take, right?
Yeah, and it felt like it was more in the middle as well of the pattern.
Yeah. I think this is the kind of trade where you could very much get tripped up on. Um, but yeah. One I think that was interesting. I think will get marked will be this one down here. I think this one just has kind of a all things considered, right? You have this kind of, I guess you call it a short term move here, right? Kind of as a second entry long, just real far away from the EMA. Considering how tight we've been on the EMA all day, I think this is something that will be marked. I don't know if I can take that. Um, yeah, there was a couple other spots I was looking for entries, didn't really get. I was looking for a higher low after this one right here. Didn't get the best setup, right? Just having the short-term trend up, right? Get the break, short-term trend, break, two legs to a new low. Didn't feel great about entry down there, but if I got a higher low there, probably would have been looking for an entry there. Um, One that I found interesting. So, I mean, I think you can just tell by this point of the day, it's just we're not getting any structure. It's just super choppy. We're not getting far away from the EMA, right? So for this one, I kind of do view it as a short-term trend, break, leg to a new low, potentially off a key entry point. I have a feeling that's going to be marked. We have a triple test here. I feel that's going to be marked, and I think that map will mark this second entry low. Obviously, I don't think I could take any of these because, it's just one of those things where we like to take trades that we know we're going to move in our favor, right? And with trades with none of these pushes moving far from the EMA, you're likely going to have to sit in them for a long time, right? Today's a day where I probably move my profit target to just 4 ticks instead of the six. But it's a real ugly day. Um, was there anything on this that you want to take a look at or talk about?
It was there was one like I could see that it wasn't worth taking. Somebody did take it today at 0844 CST. It was a lower high in the range, but it was really stacked. The midline was holding quite well. It did
At
make it down, but
8:44
then I did
CST,
look at it. Yeah.
you're looking at like this one.
Let me have a look just in case my timing's off. Yeah, that was the one. That was in the range. I did question it afterwards, but I just still wasn't happy with it.
I think this is one of those where it's, we've talked about the difference between, I think a big red flag that, we've talked about when it comes to like market structure and stuff like this. I'm sure you see this as well, right? So we talk about this a lot is, if things are going to be choppy, they're usually choppy or, if there's a lack of kind of continuity in the short term, it's because something at the larger term is trying to happen. I just feel in this situation, there's just on all three levels of the market, there's just no real direction or clear end goal, right? Like I don't see anything here. I'm like, yes, this is what the market is trying to do at this given time, right? Um, so it's so you would say you would look at it just from a perspective of uh, the lower high, probably this short term range, right? Back into it.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at it as.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, there was just too much chaff. The midline was holding quite well just before it, and then just before it triggered, the midline held again, so it put me off completely of it.
Yeah, the chop here is just probably the biggest thing, where it's just, we talked about, when can you enter in congestion, when probably stay away. I would say this is definitely when you stay away, just because there's nothing here that says, okay, it's congested, but I feel good about something on the top side or the bottom side or the way it's moving. Like this is already played out. This is not moving in a real direction. I mean, it's moving up, not in a trend-like manner. So I think that was super tough. I would probably stay away from that, but I think you can see that.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot better with these now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the way I describe it, a day like today is, it's a tough trading day, right? Just because you can kind of sit here and say, oh, there's not much happening. I'm just curious. I want to see if this is in an entry. No, it did not. Although we still make it a second leg down. I think you can enter down here if there's a short-term break. One leg, two leg, if you get something down here, you can probably enter that, past time. The way I view today is kind of like imagine, you go out and you get your surfboard or you get your fishing gear, right? And you show up to the water, whether you're surfing or fishing, and you're all ready, and there's just nothing there. If you're surfing, there's no waves. If you're fishing, it's like the water is all polluted. It's one of those things where it's almost just a futile effort, right? And I think that's kind of what a lot of today was, where, you know, typically from a price action perspective, we have one of two things, right? We have either there's conviction in the long term, like there's a long term something happening, right? Or things are mixed and we're getting defined price action concepts that we see, whether it's trends or prices moving in twos or developing support and resistance, right? We got really none of that. There's no real decisive movements. There's no falling into areas of, where support or resistance. There's just nothing. So even on some of these moves, it's, you can almost make the argument that when you get a move like this, you're kind of just can just take it because, excuse me, there's like nothing else here, but it's just risky, right? Let me kind of pick up where we left off. If you have nothing else, we can continue taking a look at some of Dan's trades over the last um, couple months. Do you have anything else from today?
No, it was just that one that I marked that I thought was all right. But yeah, just 0-0 for me today, which I'm quite happy about.
I think a 0-0 on a day like today is fine. You know.
Yeah, that was my same thinking with it.
And here's a semi-decent example of, kind of what we just talked about. If, for instance, something like this, right? You see how there's kind of like a lack of things going on, and by the time you enter this kind of second entry long failed breakout, right? but there is still some movement. It's almost, you know, we still have this trend, we still have this range, we still have attempting another trend, right? So we can enter in places like this where this trade really, I mean, we are expecting a retest of this green up, right? But it's the price target is defined by this trend, and then the setup is this kind of failed break out of this range, right? Now that I look, I'm pretty sure I even took this trade a while ago. But you see, I mean, we can just very easily see the difference on a day like today, where there's, you know, maybe to the naked eye it looks the same, right? But for us, we're able to decipher the moves before. So when we're able to decipher the moves before, then we can enter future moves going forward. I mean, this is really self-explanatory. A, you know, we have this move up from the overnight. We have this correction. We're looking to make more pushes up. We have this short-term trend, right? And you have the breakdown and kind of going with the trend off the EMA. I mean, this is, when we talk about trading out of congestion, short-term versus long-term, this is about as comprehensive as to what we've been talking about as we can kind of get. Um, Now, and this is one of those too where I think for me personally, right, uh, maybe 6 months ago, I'd have a hard time taking, right? Because I see this move, it's breaking a new high already. Well, on that note, we could even make the argument that we're making two legs up, right? But this is one of those where if we factor in long term or short term versus middle term, we can kind of see that, you know, the risks involved with taking this trade, it's not like there's a counter risk, right? There's not like something here that I'm seeing, like, okay, if I enter this trade going to the long side, what is there I need to be worried about that it'll continue on the short side? The only thing I could really think of is maybe a second leg down, but we already kind of get a semi two-legged down. So I like this trade. Anything you see here from this one that you want to comment on, or you see in general?
No, I quite like that one as well. It's getting a good rejection
Mm-hmm.
as well, so it looks like it was quite a really good trade.
This one I find a little more interesting over here. Right. I think. Okay, Dan. Okay, this makes a little more sense now. 'Cause I know I was looking at this green one. And it looked like he took this one. I was like, I don't think Dan would take that. Okay, I see this. Right. So there's a lot of clues here based on the trend lines that Dan drew. Right. You first have this spike down. Right. You have a two-legged back. Right. And you notice that he drew this short-term trend. Right. I think a lot of traders, when they would see this, they would be tempted to take this first, second entry short. Right. And we've seen this over and over again. Like, how many times does someone take the first, second entry short or first, second entry long after a break, right? And it ends up being like this wider STT that's a new high, right? And I think this is one of those things where, you know, we've talked about needing this short-term trend to be intact to break out from, you know, this move. I would venture to say there's a little bit of an element of it that is, you know, I have noticed that on moves that are, I'm going to put this, when we have a move like this, right, and it's not really a back and forth trend, right, it's just a long, continuous shot down, right, we need to be a little bit more careful of when we get the break, right? It's almost like, I'm going to put this. So if we have like this long trend down, right, I feel like it's more likely we just get a typical second entry out, right? But when we have like a sharp move down like this, the correction, I feel I'll usually wait for the extra moves just because I feel like that correction could take like longer, right? Like this move happens so quickly, right? That the market almost like needs to catch up to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not like it's oftentimes we get multiple tests on the correction and then we can continue down, right? It takes time for the EMA and the stops and the sell orders to kind of even out. So he's combining a lot here, right? And a lot of it has to do with, he kind of starts up here. He has his first move down, but he's always still mindful of this kind of original slope from the move, right? And this is really a move down plus two legs back, but then we need a break and a new high of the two legs back, right? And then, furthermore, he waits on a lower high, right? And as we've discussed before, a lower high is often just a failed second leg up. So this is really trying to make a 1-2, right? 1-1-2, right? But the 2 is this lower high is the failed 2. And this is where he draws off of this area right here, off the next swing. He says, okay, if we get another touch there, I'm going to assume that that's valid. And plus needing the retest of this, plus the attempt at this, right? Plus the not getting the second leg. It's when traders get kind of confused and mixed up with Dan's, I guess, kind of bucket trades, right? Excuse my language. A lot of it has to do with he's combining multiple things that it's a lot to type out. So he'll just say, screw it, But you can kind of see that there are multiple applications of Pat's principles involved with lower high. This is not just a lower high to retest, right? There's so many things to see here that need to be processed that help you understand why a lower high to a retest works, right? When you hear Dan talk about all the time where he says, I need more price action, to figure it out. Well, this is it, right? He draws it off this slope and this swing, says, okay, if we get a strong rejection on the next time we touch it, then I feel better about it, and that's exactly what he does, right? This is one of those where I think if you were to take a look at it, you say, okay, maybe it's moved far, it's not enough room right here to these lows, which fair assessment, right? But when you consider the fact that, okay, on all of Dan's best trades and the ones he likes multiple. So if he goes short, he likes multiple things to be behind it. If he goes long, he likes multiple things to be behind it, right? And when we talk about having something behind it, it's not just rejection. It's the failure to do something that would clash with our move, right? So, like I said, this lower high as an attempt at a second leg up, well, the fact that we don't get this second leg up and we get this lower high is due to this move, right? It's kind of like how we discussed the other day where sometimes prices will turn off a price level and they're not turning off of it because of there being support or resistance. They're turning off of it because it's part of the actual move, right? Well, this is trying to be part of the actual move. We see it's getting denied. So that's where you can get a lot of confidence saying, okay, even though this is a long bar far away, it's all the way down here near these lows, you have confidence that this is going to hold, right?
Yep, makes good sense.
I think, you along with, Fahim and then the others and Robert who joined this call, it takes time. Like it's taken me months, but to view things in terms of market structure, it makes trading a lot easier.
Definitely, mine's gone up dramatically since you've been teaching me. So thank you very much for that.
Well, I don't want to use the word teaching. We're studying.
Yeah, studying.
And I think the only other thing to look at from this day would be just the fact that we can really just see the difference of we like when we move far away from the EMA, right? Because that means one of two things: we're eventually going to be drawn back to it, or the next time we're at the EMA, we're going to reject off of it, right? Today, no rejection whatsoever. I find it interesting that Dan marked this one green. Not interesting, it's just this one kind of shows what I've been looking at when it comes to lower highs and these kind of short term moves, right? Where it's, you know, the way I've seen it, and I've kind of briefly articulated this a little bit, is, you know, Dan marks lower high here. We can talk about the key entry point, but really this is more of a self contained move, right? And what I have noticed is on the break, if we get one test on this EMA, right, and it rejects like that, so we've talked about if it's the one leg up break, do we wait for a on the first entry or do we wait or the second entry or do we wait on a third entry or the second leg up, right? I don't like taking this move just because we've already rejected at the EMA one time. I think we're more susceptible to reject at it a second time, right? So that's why I need the second leg up or the lower high, which you get here, right? Um, so that's the only thing I have on that 131. I hate days like this whole market structure. I kind of hate because you have a range that you're playing, but you don't get the tops and bottoms right, but it's still the range because you're playing off the midline. You shoot up and you don't get the retest. These days are difficult. I don't see anything that Dan took here. Yeah, that's like maybe a day where you just skip that and everything. Um, does mark this second entry long, but I don't know, get a signal bar there. Um, if you're all right, I think I'm gonna skip to another day's chart just 'cause I don't see anything here. It's really worth discussing. Volume day, or did you just post it twice? I don't know if he marked a trade here either. Wow. Back to back days with just greens. See if there's anything here to discuss though. Yeah, that one's tough because you need to make the new low there. I kind of like. Okay, this is kind of like the one I had marked from today. Right. This one, right, where you kind of get this short-term move, right? Break, leg to a new low, potentially playing off this key entry point. It's not the best setup. I think in this scenario, you're kind of late in the day to be saying, okay, I'm just gonna take something floating, right? But you kind of see what's going on here, where this is just basically, you know, and this is where I tried to talk about not just taking the second entry, but understanding what a second entry is, right? So then you could take a look at a move like this. Okay, this is a short-term channel break, leg to a new low, off a point that we've already followed. You're on right to the EMA, but I don't think this is that bad of a trade. It's just we look at where you are in the chart. It's you know, there's not much to say. I feel good about any of these trends. Hopefully, find. Okay, finally got one, and Dan marks it green. Okay, see anything here that stands out to you on this triple test right away?
We are in the bigger uptrend. I do see that we do, like
Mm-hmm.
before it, have a couple of strong legs up, then going sideways. It is a little bit congested for me. I don't like how it's broke out the bottom on the triple test.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I would be expecting it to create another leg up out of the range, but
Which it does. Yeah.
Yeah, that one I don't think I'd be confident in taking at this moment in time.
Yeah, this one's a little tough to make because if we are playing this uptrend, right, we've already had touched on the bottom, the top, the bottom, and the top, right? So you'd be expecting prices to possibly work their way down. But, when you start seeing these shallow corrections, you know, we kind of may think that we may not get there. So then we kind of turn our eyes to the midline. And this midline, this is really close. I think if this bar had more committed to see either being as a triple test, right, or committed more to being a failed breakout back in the midline, something around there, right? I think this is where the green part of the trade comes in, right? Because it's almost like we would feel good about this resistance point if we saw it as a strong rejection off the support, right? Or if we saw it convincingly break out, right? It kind of does neither. And I would venture to say, just getting in Dan's head, he's using the midline as kind of maybe the glue, not the glue, but maybe the jump off point there. Um, but it is kind of ugly. Um, but this is where, when you're in congestion and you're just super, super unsure of anything else going on, right? You can take it. The only thing I would say as of note, and this is just a smaller version of something we've studied the past couple of days, is so we've talked about ranges after a trend, right? So granted, this is one of those variables that we've discussed, but we are in a larger uptrend, right? But when we talk about taking trades too early using range principles after a move, you notice how we have this move up, we have to break the new high, and then we kind of fold over into this pretty well-defined range. It's congested, but you see how this range kind of takes on its own identity from this move, right? And we move further and further away from it. The EMA flattens out, saying we have now gone into full range rules, right? Versus sometimes when we try to take a triple test too quickly after a move, we kind of leave ourselves vulnerable to this move still being a heavy influencing factor on the market, right? Versus you can see as we go here, say, okay, by the time we get over here, we're pretty confident that whatever this was, this is its own structure, this is done. And now this is the new prevailing structure. Versus sometimes if you take it too quickly after, if it's like around here, it's saying, okay, we may still be influenced by this thing over here. Yeah, a couple of days in a row. I think I have time for one more, so take a look at it here. And we got a no entry on this day. My only note on this would be, I think Top G was talking about it in the Discord. Just the importance of when you see that it's shit, excuse my language, don't try and fit everything, right? You see Dan will draw these loose channels, but he's not trying to fit everything into short term or middle term things. It's just if it's not there, he's not going to trust it, right? And I think people sometimes will get it backwards or say, okay, I'm only taking trades that are off key entry points, but then try to make every swing a part of the key entry point, right? It doesn't work like that. So, um, like I said, I had to keep today short, about 30 minutes. Was there anything else you want to discuss or take a look at while we have these things up?
No, I'm quite good, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, kind of just a dud of a day, right? Um, so why don't we do this?